By the summer of 1945, Europe had been a continent consumed by war for nearly 6 years. In command bunkers, atop windswept hills, and behind maps strewn with pins marking German positions, Soviet generals surveyed the remnants of the Third Reich. The Red Army had advanced relentlessly from the ruins of Stalingrad to the outskirts of Berlin, hammering Wehrmacht units, absorbing their attacks, and slowly shaping the battlefield to their advantage. Yet, even as Soviet officers celebrated what seemed to be an inevitable victory in Europe, an invisible force was emerging. One that no human intelligence network, no reconnaissance, and no spy could fully grasp. The world that Soviet generals knew: tank formations, artillery barrages, infantry waves, was about to meet an entirely new paradigm. This force did not rely on manpower or conventional firepower. It was atomic energy, locked away in secret laboratories thousands of miles from the Eastern Front, quietly awaiting its debut on the stage of global warfare. And in the corridors of Soviet high command, generals would remain unaware of the scale, precision, and destructive potential of the weapon that would soon eclipse every battlefield tactic they had meticulously refined. Throughout 1944, the Red Army had reached unprecedented heights of operational capability. Victory at Stalingrad had not only been a turning point, it was a psychological triumph. Wehrmacht units were no longer invincible juggernauts. They were vulnerable, stretched thin across a collapsing front. The subsequent victory at Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, had solidified Soviet confidence in mechanized warfare and operational doctrine. Soviet strategists relied heavily on combined arms, overwhelming artillery, and the sheer numbers of infantry and armor. Yet in the shadows of this numerical and tactical superiority, the Allies were cultivating a secret that would render these calculations suddenly and terrifyingly obsolete. By mid-1944, the Soviet High Command was already anticipating a long campaign across Eastern and Central Europe. Stalin's directives emphasized relentless pressure on German units, exploiting breakthroughs and coordinating multi-front offensives. Soviet intelligence, though formidable, was focused on conventional German capabilities. Tank production rates, ammunition supplies, troop morale, and the deployment of new weapons like the Panther and Tiger tanks. What they did not anticipate, however, was that America had quietly moved beyond the parameters of conventional warfare. Manhattan, Oak Ridge, and Los Alamos were not simply research sites. They were the cradle of a revolution that would redefine the very concept of battlefield superiority. In the strategic discussions of Soviet generals, the focus remained firmly grounded in reality. If Germany could produce Panther tanks, could Hitler deploy them in sufficient numbers to halt the Red Army? Could Luftwaffe fighter bombers contest Soviet air superiority? Each question was answered with detailed reconnaissance, intercepted communications, and careful analysis. What remained invisible, even to the sharpest eyes, was that the war was about to be fought along an entirely different axis, the electromagnetic and atomic, rather than the topography of river crossings or the density of tank formations. By early 1945, the Red Army had crossed the Vistula, poised for the final push toward Berlin. Generals like Georgy Zhukov and Ivan Konev had become household names in military circles. Their reputations built on tactical brilliance and unyielding pressure. Soviet armies were larger, better supplied, and increasingly experienced than any they had encountered in 1941. Yet even with this advantage, the looming presence of the United States and the secret power it wielded was completely underestimated. In intelligence briefings, reports of unusual American activity or new technological projects were often dismissed as exaggeration industrial propaganda, or unrelated civilian research. The atomic bomb, in the minds of Soviet strategists, simply did not exist, or if it did, it was years away from deployment. Across the Atlantic, in secret cities ringed by security fences and armed guards, the United States was orchestrating a technological symphony that would culminate in the most dramatic intervention in the war yet conceived. The Manhattan Project, officially begun in 1942, had mobilized tens of thousands of scientists, engineers, and technicians across multiple sites. Its goal was singular: harness the energy of the atom to produce a weapon capable of unparalleled destruction. By the summer of 1945, the project had already spent over $2 billion, equivalent to tens of billions today, and brought together some of the greatest scientific minds of the era, including Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, and Richard Feynman. The project was as much about secrecy as it was about science. Security protocols were draconian. Entire towns, such as Los Alamos, were constructed in isolation, with employees cut off from the outside world. Communications were heavily monitored. Information was compartmentalized so thoroughly that few individuals understood the full scope of the project. In essence, the United States had created a networked research apparatus, each component critical, yet unaware of the larger operational picture. A mirror, perhaps unknowingly, of the future network-centric warfare seen later in armored units. By July 1945, America had successfully tested the first atomic bomb at the Trinity site in the New Mexico desert. The explosion was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. A blinding flash, a mushroom cloud rising tens of thousands of feet, and a force capable of leveling a city in moments. Reports filtered up the chain of command to President Harry Truman, Secretary of War Henry Stimson, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The implications were staggering. Where conventional military campaigns had required months of preparation, countless casualties, and the slow attrition of enemy forces, this new weapon offered immediate and absolute results. Yet, while American planners marveled at the bomb's potential, Soviet intelligence was still struggling to understand U.S. nuclear capabilities. The Soviets had spies, of course. Klaus Fuchs and other operatives would later reveal that Moscow had gained partial insight into American nuclear research. Yet in 1945, this information was fragmentary, often delayed, and lacking critical context. Soviet generals, accustomed to evaluating conventional force ratios, tank production figures, and troop movements, could not fully conceptualize a weapon that could destroy a city, a strategic hub, and the infrastructure supporting millions. In an instant, they were still operating under the assumption that the war would be decided on the ground, through attrition and maneuver, not through a single, technologically driven strike. By contrast, American military planners were already integrating the atomic bomb into strategic calculations. The decision to target Hiroshima and Nagasaki was not merely punitive, it was operational. Each bomb was designed to demonstrate the destructive potential of atomic energy, while simultaneously compelling Japan to surrender. The United States had effectively created a force multiplier that could achieve in hours what conventional armies required months to accomplish. In military communications, in operational planning, and in strategic execution, the bomb was treated as a node in a system, a precision instrument capable of reshaping the theater of war. Even as American cities buzzed with scientists, engineers, and military planners, Soviet intelligence networks were tirelessly trying to piece together the American war machine. From the streets of New York to the deserts of New Mexico, clandestine agents were instructed to observe, to intercept, to report. Moscow's operatives compiled reports of industrial output, shipping manifests, and even scattered rumors about secret research laboratories. Yet, for all their efforts, the full picture eluded them. The problem was fundamentally one of conceptual blindness. Soviet strategists were trained to evaluate material strength tanks, artillery, divisions, and to anticipate enemy movements through conventional reconnaissance. A weapon that defied this paradigm simply could not be fully understood. When reports trickled in about unusually high energy consumption at certain remote sites or the construction of massive industrial facilities, these anomalies were often dismissed. Why would America invest so heavily in civilian energy plants in the middle of a war? Intelligence officers concluded they were merely production facilities for conventional munitions, or perhaps experimental aircraft engines. They could not conceive of a single bomb capable of obliterating entire urban centers. Even within the Soviet high command, skepticism ran deep. Marshal Alexander Vasilevsky and other senior generals reviewed intelligence on American scientific endeavors with a mixture of curiosity and incredulity. Reports of unprecedented energy experiments were filed under the category of interesting but unverifiable. For every warning that might have suggested the atomic threat, there were 3 reports emphasizing conventional targets: naval bases, airfields, and troop concentrations. The Red Army was prepared for a war of attrition, not for a weapon that could end it overnight. What made the atomic bomb particularly elusive was its invisibility. Unlike tanks or planes, which could be counted, tracked, and anticipated, atomic energy left no trail in conventional intelligence channels. There were no convoys to observe, no test maneuvers on open fields, and no communications that fit Soviet paradigms of military activity. Every piece of data intercepted was abstract. Measurements of uranium isotopes, calculations of neutron flux, and cryptic internal memos from Los Alamos. To Soviet eyes, these were anomalies too arcane to be actionable. They could sense something unusual, yet the scale and implications remained beyond comprehension. Meanwhile, American planners were fully aware of this information gap. Security measures ensured that by the time Soviet operatives pieced together fragments, the bombs would already be deployed. The Manhattan Project was not simply a scientific endeavor, it was an intelligence operation in reverse. It used the fog of war, operational secrecy, and the compartmentalization of knowledge to create a strategic blind spot for the Soviets. Every successful test, every logistical movement, was cloaked in layers of misdirection, camouflage, false industrial activity, and coded communications that obfuscated the true objective. By the spring of 1945, American military planners had reached a decisive conclusion. The atomic bomb would end the war before Soviet forces could play a significant role in the Pacific theater. In contrast, Soviet generals continued to plan massive offensives in Manchuria and anticipated a prolonged struggle against entrenched Japanese forces. Stalin, pragmatic as always, relied on his generals to provide battlefield intelligence, yet he had no clear picture of the destructive potential already sitting in American arsenals. August 6, 1945. The morning in Hiroshima began like any other. The city's streets were bustling with civilians, factories were producing equipment for the final months of war, and military installations were quietly coordinating defenses. Yet, in the skies above, an American B-29 bomber named Enola Gay carried a payload that would render all traditional defenses irrelevant. The atomic bomb, codenamed Little Boy, was the culmination of years of painstaking research, testing, and secrecy, a weapon that Soviet generals could scarcely imagine. When the bomb detonated over Hiroshima at 8:15 a.m., the explosion was instantaneous, blinding, and total. In a fraction of a second, tens of thousands of lives were extinguished, infrastructure vaporized, and the city transformed into an unrecognizable wasteland. The shockwave traveled miles, incinerating everything in its path, while a mushroom cloud rose to tens of thousands of feet, visible for miles across the Japanese landscape. For American planners and observers, the success of the bomb validated every calculation, every assumption, every year of unprecedented effort. In Washington, the Joint Chiefs of Staff were immediately briefed. Hiroshima had demonstrated the operational potential of atomic warfare, not just as a weapon of mass destruction, but as a tool for strategic dominance. Unlike conventional bombing, which required hundreds of sorties, logistical planning, and months of preparation, the atomic bomb delivered instantaneous results with minimal exposure. Every city targeted could be neutralized without the drawn-out attrition familiar to European battlefields. Across the globe, Soviet intelligence networks were scrambling to interpret what had happened. Initial reports from Japanese sources were chaotic, incomplete, and often contradictory. Moscow's leadership had anticipated conventional attacks, but no directive, no training manual, and no wartime experience had prepared them for a single bomb capable of annihilating an entire city. Soviet generals reviewed photographs and reconnaissance reports, but these only captured the aftermath: collapsed buildings, scorched terrain, and human devastation. The operational concept behind the weapon, its speed and precision, remained opaque. Stalin himself received the first detailed assessments of the Hiroshima strike through encrypted channels. Soviet analysts attempted to reverse engineer what had occurred, relying on limited scientific understanding and incomplete intelligence. For many generals, the notion of a bomb powered by the splitting of an atom seemed almost mythical. How could such a small device produce effects that dwarfed entire artillery barrages or months of strategic bombing? How could America develop and deploy it without any detectable preparation in the previous years of war? The implications were staggering. The Red Army, which had planned extensive campaigns across Manchuria and the Pacific, now faced the prospect of confronting an adversary, wielding a weapon that could nullify entire formations, annihilate fortified cities, and render conventional tactics obsolete. What had once been a predictable world of operational planning, logistics, and attrition was suddenly replaced with a paradigm in which the entire calculus of warfare had shifted. A single city could be destroyed faster than any army could advance, and the psychological effect on both troops and civilians was immediate and overwhelming. Just 3 days after Hiroshima, on August 9, 1945, the American B-29 Boxcar delivered the second atomic bomb, Fat Man, over Nagasaki. Unlike Hiroshima, the topography of Nagasaki, the hills and valleys, created an irregular pattern of destruction. Yet the devastation was equally unimaginable. The city, a critical industrial hub for Japan, was almost entirely obliterated in minutes. Smoke, fire, and radioactive fallout painted a grim tableau that no Soviet intelligence report could have predicted. In Moscow, initial reports were met with disbelief. Analysts struggled to reconcile the scale of destruction with the size and deployment method of the weapon. Soviet generals, previously trained to evaluate enemy forces through troop movements, artillery concentration, and aircraft sorties, found themselves confronting a phenomenon that defied conventional military logic. The speed and precision of these strikes revealed a truth that had been invisible to Soviet eyes. America had developed a weapon that could end the war almost instantaneously. Field Marshal Vasilevsky, tasked with strategic planning for the Soviet Far East, convened an emergency briefing. Maps were spread across the table. depicting American-occupied islands, Japanese cities, and proposed Soviet advance routes. "The situation has changed," he told his generals, his voice measured but tense. "The Americans possess a capability beyond our comprehension. We must reconsider our operations, or risk annihilation, before reaching the objective." Even Stalin, usually inscrutable and calm under pressure, was forced to confront a new reality. The atomic strikes demonstrated the futility of conventional approaches in the face of this unprecedented power. Months of logistical planning, troop movements, and anticipated combat scenarios were suddenly obsolete. The Red Army, formidable as it was, could not counter a weapon that acted faster than any defensive maneuver. Yet, the Soviets also recognized opportunity. While the bomb ensured Japanese surrender, it also underscored the necessity of developing comparable capabilities. The post-war world would no longer be dominated solely by conventional military strength. It would be dominated by technological supremacy, scientific innovation, and the ability to project power invisibly across continents. In this sense, the American monopoly on atomic weapons became both a strategic triumph and a profound warning. The psychological impact on Soviet commanders was as critical as the material one. For generations, military doctrine had emphasized numerical superiority, tactical skill, and battlefield initiative. The atomic bomb introduced a factor that transcended all of these: instant, decisive, and irreversible destruction. Soviet generals, who had survived the horrors of the Eastern Front, now faced a new dimension of warfare, one in which every plan and every formation could be rendered meaningless in a single moment. By the end of August 1945, Japan had formally surrendered, and the war in the Pacific concluded. Across Europe and Asia, the implications of the atomic bomb reverberated not just on the battlefield, but in the corridors of political power and military planning. For the Soviet Union, the revelation was profound. Generals who had planned for months of attritional combat realized that American scientific and industrial capacity had fundamentally altered the rules of warfare. The post-war evaluations were sobering. Soviet technical intelligence teams studied every available piece of information: American production statistics, laboratory reports, and eyewitness accounts of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It became clear that the United States had achieved something unprecedented: the integration of scientific ingenuity, industrial scale, and operational secrecy into a weapon that could not be countered by conventional means. The lessons were unavoidable. The next global conflict would not be fought solely with tanks, planes, or artillery, but with information, technology, and unprecedented destructive capability. Stalin prioritized atomic research immediately, ordering Soviet scientists to replicate the American success. The race to develop nuclear weapons became a central pillar of post-war strategy, as the Red Army sought to avoid the strategic vulnerability revealed by the bomb. For decades, the consequences of this single American secret would shape global military doctrine, strategic planning, and international relations. For historians and military analysts, the lesson was equally clear. The atomic bomb had not merely ended a war. It had redefined what victory meant. The Soviets, who had endured staggering losses and achieved tactical brilliance across Europe, now faced a form of warfare in which traditional metrics, numbers, positioning, firepower were secondary to technological innovation and the ability to act with unprecedented speed. Ultimately, the story of America's atomic secret demonstrates a timeless principle in military history. The advantage lies not always in quantity or brute force, but in capabilities unseen, often invisible and understood by few. Just as Sherman tanks' FM radios had revolutionized armored warfare years earlier, atomic weapons revealed that victory could depend on mastery of the intangible. Information, secrecy, and the strategic application of science. Soviet generals never anticipated the atomic bomb. They could not foresee how a single technological breakthrough would render their plans obsolete and reshape the post-war world. And in this, history confirms a truth that echoes into the present. Wars are not always won by strength alone, but by those who can harness knowledge and innovation to turn the invisible into decisive power. From the deserts of New Mexico to the streets of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to the secretive chambers of Soviet intelligence, the atomic bomb stands as a testament to an era where science dictated the fate of nations, where the invisible became the ultimate weapon, and where strategic foresight, understanding the unimaginable, decided the course of history.